The U.S. Secretary of Transportation says new safety requirements are under consideration after Saturday's deadly mid-air collision over the Hudson River. Secretary Ray LaHood spoke to reporters on a visit to New Jersey today. He says the FAA confirms the air traffic controller on duty at Teterboro Airport was talking on his cell phone at the time of the crash. Adrian Sapino reports.
Nearly 1 week after the deadly crash between a small plane and a tourist helicopter over the Hudson River, Federal Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood addressed fears about lack of safety requirements. LaHood said the department is considering new policies for this crowded airspace.
We have put together a working group at FAA that will make a recommendation, or more than one recommendation, to the administrator, which we will announce within 2 weeks. This working group is looking what NTSB had recommended in the past with respect to these forms of transportation, and recommendations for how we can make sure that when people board a helicopter or board a small plane, that they'll be safe.
Some have called for severe limits on flights over the Hudson or regulating the airspace below 1,100 feet. The crash occurred in an area reserved for small aircraft. Unlike large jets, such aircraft can fly without guidance from air traffic controllers and are responsible for steering clear of other traffic.
The traffic in the areas is pretty obvious. You're sitting along Sinatra Park, you get a sense very clearly that this is an incredibly different congestion of air traffic than it's ever been. But there is a difference in leadership. In the past, those of us who have raised this question had a response from the FAA that said we do not have statutory authority for anything under 1,100 feet. This new administrator and this new administration said something much different. They looked at the law and said, you know what, we do have statutory authority. And that beginning right there is a marked difference in where we're heading in terms of safety in the sky.
That space can be controlled. There is technology, I believe, that's relatively simple based on technology that already exists.
The remarks come as the FAA confirms shocking details from its investigation into the crash. The controller at Teterboro Airport, who cleared the takeoff of the small flight, was on the phone with his girlfriend during the crash, in touch with the aircraft, but also on a separate personal call. And the supervisor on duty was out of the building. Though the FAA says these factors were not to blame for the accident, both Teterboro employees have been suspended without pay. The feds have begun disciplinary proceedings. Governor Corzine was asked about Teterboro's future.
Stewart Air Force Base, for one, is being revisited as a potential additional site to loosen up traffic. And I think there are other ways to address some of that congestion other than just closing an airport.
The FAA has sent pilots reminders on precautions for flying in this zone, including flying at speeds under 140 knots. But federal officials say it could be weeks before we hear recommendations and possibly longer before they're implemented. Adrian Sapino, NJN News.